Bonjour mes amis et bienvenue au Pendu dans le Cercle de Lune. Hello friends, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you probably already know from the attempt I made at a French introduction to this video that this is my series in which I use Cercle de Lune adjacent, or antique Italian decks to help me explore a central message to pull out from my larger weekly spread. And I've already done my larger weekly spread already. And just in case you have not seen that spread, I highly recommend going to watch that first, because it will give you a platform from which to understand the answer that I'm going to be getting for this spread that I'm laying out for you now, which is what is the central message from this week's larger 5-elemental spread. And if you don't know what that what the reading for that 5-element spread was, the answer to that question is going to be a little bit difficult to get to understand. So I recommend go watch that one first. And to help you do that, I'll put a card up here for you to hop on over and watch that. And remember, you don't have to watch any of these videos all in one sitting. You can watch them in bits and pieces, and that's perfectly acceptable. And just in case you have watched that first video in bits and pieces and you'd like a little bit of a refresher, let me just remind you that the title to that video was, I believe, Change is Coming. Now, for the last few weeks with the the Thoth Tarot deep dive I've been doing, we've been getting a lot of readings that showed that things are out of whack, that things are off kilter, things are not matching up. We've got a passion to do something building up, but no specific outlet. We want something, but it's not happening, or we're out of sorts, or that kind of thing has been bouncing around the readings for the last few weeks. And now finally we've got the idea that things are going to be changing for the better. Now, we started off with the Three of Swords, and then we move into the Wheel card, the Fortune card, which is wonderful. It's perfectly wonderful. So that was then, this is now. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of my reading of the central message for that larger spread. So what am I going to do? I am going to show you the question I ask every week. What is the central message of this week's elemental spread? I'll show it to you all nicely typed out. And then I will show you the spread that I pulled. And before I do that, let me just thank you in advance. Thank you very much to all of those of you who hit the thumbs up button and have subscribed. That really does help the channel immensely. It helps bring the channel, the videos, to the eyes of people who might also be interested in what's happening here. So, thank you very much. Those small acts of kindness benefit us all. And I'm greatly appreciative of you for doing those things. Thank you. And also, I'm appreciative of all those who have reached out to me, who have sent me an email saying they wanted a reading, and I'm offering that to you too. My email address is below. Gosh, I'm sorry. My room is cold. My office here is cold. Things are starting to freeze up because I had to turn the heater off because it's noisy. So the heater's off. We're going with cold hands and warm heart. My email address is below. thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. We'll get you a reading. Cercle de Lune, RWS, Smith Waite deck, Thoth deck, whatever strikes your fancy. Long reading, short reading, anything is possible. So there's that. Now, friends, here we go with this week's video. Let me show you the question and the cards, and we'll start reading. Here they are. Friends, this is the first time I have used this deck, the Cercle de Lune deck that you saw on top. Yeah? What do you think? Do you like this deck? I do. It's one of my, well, it's recent to my collection, but it's one of my newer Tarot de Marseille decks. This is a deck that was produced by Yves Renan at Tarot de Marseille Heritage, and I will have a link to it in the description box below. It's not horribly priced. It's a good price. Shipping will be a little expensive, but they make really good tarot decks. Let me show you the back of the cards. I think the backs to this deck are just, I like this. I like this style. It's subdued, but it's still got a little texture. I like this a lot. Squared corners, just so you know, corners can always be rounded if we want to. And the original deck, this is a facsimile, well, a restored facsimile of a deck that was created by Johann Jaeger, I think is the way it's pronounced, from 1801. So this is one of my more recent, the originals of my Tarot de Marseille decks. This is one of my younger decks, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And it's a Besançon deck, which means that it has Jupiter and Juno instead of the Pope and the Popess, which I like. I think it's fun, and I'm a little bit sorry that they didn't show up in this week's reading. But what did show up, you saw, was from left to right, the King of Wands, the Page of Cups, the Maison Dieu, yeah, the House God, or the House of God, and the Star. And then you saw that there was another deck below these 4 cards, right? And that is from a deck that I'm starting to learn and study, and you will be seeing more of. It's the Cercle de Lune, and it's a deck that was created in the late 1800s, but then disappeared and was never really produced. There weren't many decks produced in the late 1800s, but it was discovered in the 1900s, in the middle of the 1900s, and was mass produced. And it's a very interesting oracle deck that is based in astrology, using the ideas and artwork, the art style-ish from Tarot de Marseille. I think it works beautifully for as an accompany with the Tarot de Marseille decks, and I read it because of the structure of the oracle deck. I read it like I would read a Lenormand deck, if that makes sense. So we've got a lot going on here. We're going to start off with the Tarot de Marseille, which is the primary reading for this spread. And when I laid out the deck, when I laid out the cards, I should say, what did I get? The original layout was the Page of Cups, the House God, the Maison Dieu, and the Star. Which I could have stopped right there. I really could have. But I was curious. I wanted to, because you notice that the Star is facing to the left, the Page is facing to the left. I wanted to see, what was the Page looking at? What does the Page have on his, her, their mind? And then we got the King of Wands, yeah, which is looking to the right, and I thought, okay, full stop. That's the full spread. So, because of this, for many reasons, and I'll show you the reasons why in just a moment, I just think that this spread really begins with what would be the Tower card in a Smith-Waite deck or a Thoth deck, but it's called La Maison Dieu. It is the House God or the House of God. This card. Now you see the tower there in the center. We see one person clearly falling from above. His hands their hands almost seem to be touching the ground already. And then there's the figure behind the tower, which could be falling, or it could be crawling out from a back door there, the way I see it. So it could be one of them's falling from the heights and one of them is sneaking out the back as the top of this is blown off. And you see that it's a Besançon deck, but there are many type 1 elements, and one of those type 1 elements is this kind of feather-like thing coming down from the celestial body above into the tower. So is that coming out of the tower going up, or is it coming from above into the tower? Difficult to tell. It's difficult to say. It kind of looks like a feather to me. Does it look like a feather to you? So, yes, this is the card that we begin. And why did I want to choose this as the beginning card? Because you notice that there are two figures falling. And on either side of the tower card, we have one figure being the star, one figure being the page. Let me make sure that these are in the order. Looking at them upside down and backwards is confusing for me, so let me make sure. So yeah, in the spread, they came out in this order, right? So we could say that the one sneaking out the back is the star card, and the one falling from above but in this direction is the page of cups. Interesting, right? But what are they falling from? Let's begin here. So, the house god, la maison Dieu. It can be disaster and upheaval, but it can also be endurance or a power shift. It could be an opening or a rupture, think things breaking open and breaking through. Breaking boundaries. It could be secrets revealed as well. Yeah, that which was hidden and enclosed is now has broken out of its hiding. And that sounded like the composer Haydn, didn't it? But that's hiding is what I meant to say. It's hiding place. It could be an explosion of joy or of energy. It could be ejaculation as well. It could be illumination, freedom from confinement. And I think that's where we want to move. I think that's the direction we want to move in. That idea of rupture, of breaking open and breaking free, and freedom from confinement. Especially given last week, there was a lot of bondage last week. Yeah. Do you remember? Especially from the Cercle de Lune, that there was that chained up person in the center. That chained up demon. So that explosion of energy, perhaps the illumination of the revelation of what it is that we want to create, who it is we want to be, revelation of self, revelation of desire. I think that is what's here. And endurance. This week's larger spreading encouraged endurance and patience and perseverance. So that here is really striking as well. And from that, what is exploding out of this crumbling tower? One thing that is exploding out of the tower is hope, right? It's the star card, which could be purification and regeneration. Wonderful. This card naturally follows the house god, follows la maison Dieu. Le toit follows la maison Dieu. So this is one of the things that's coming out of the tower. Regeneration. Hope, renewal again, faith in the way things are going, faith that things will work out, faith that success is available to us. Showing and accepting ourselves like this naked lady here, showing and accepting ourselves for who we are. That was also indicated in this week's larger reading. The feeling of guidance or energy from a higher place as well. Energy from a higher place. That feeling of energy from a higher, you know what I mean? Yeah? That energy from a higher place cracks us open and is felt here in a positive way. So one thing that explodes out of the tower, out of the Maison Dieu, is this hope, this feeling of guidance and energy, of faith in our coming and potential and the success that we are moving into, and our own personal renewal, and the Page of Cups is that thing which is falling out of the tower. So the Page of Cups can be a happy surprise. Now, think of this cup as being something that's hidden and which contains a happy surprise. Now, the Page of Cups is a dreamer. The Page of Cups is a sensitive, has great sensitivity, and accepts intuition. So on one side, we've got hope, regeneration. On the other side, we've got sensitivity to what is, to who we are, acceptance of our own intuition. Now, our emotional world here is a little bit immature, perhaps because we have just been freshly released from this place. So there's a lack of maturity here. There might be a little bit of a little bit of insecurity. Yeah, of the heart, like yes, wanting to say yes, but then I don't know, yes, but I don't know, and I don't know, and yeah, I don't know. That kind of not ambivalence, but insecurity. There's a potential for anticipating refusal and hurt with the Page of Cups. But there's also desire to understand one's own feelings, which is great. So, more than saying yes or no to things, understanding who we are and where we're coming from is, I think, key here. And as such, we accept our own intuition. We enjoy our sensitivity. We allow happy surprises. We allow our dreams to inform us. And this Page of Cups is moving towards this, right? And looking towards this, the King of Wands. Now, Cups and Wands are, the way I would read a Thoth deck, for example, are elementally ill-dignified. So these two are not compatible directly elementally. However, there's also that immaturity, right? So the page is moving in the direction of growing into becoming this other thing of the King of Wands, which is a person who can see the big picture, who is a leader rather than a dreamer and a sensitive, who is able to overcome challenges and is called to lead. Energy is mastered, and we are vital, we're creative, and we have fully received our sexual power. So that's the direction that the page is moving in after having left the confines of this place, right? The page is moving, has escaped, has found his way, her way, their way out of the tower, out of the Maison Dieu, and is discovering who he, she, they are, and is moving in the direction of the King of Wands, whether that King of Wands be in a male body, a female body, a trans body, a cis body, an intersex body, it doesn't matter, right? We are all kings, queens, knights, and pages, chevalier and valet. So wonderful. We're finding liberation. Yeah, and our liberation is hopeful. It's a little bit dreamy. It's a little bit sensitive because it is we've shed that protective. Our prisons are also protective in some ways. Yeah, now we're liberated, but our skin is raw, it's bare, it's unprotected. So we're sensitive. But we're moving in the direction of our power, which is wonderful. And I think is an echo a bit of what this week's larger spread was telling us. Now we're going to move right down into the Oracle de Lune. And interestingly, I think the Oracle de Lune is echoes what I just said. We had from left to right the dove, then the amphora, which is a vessel, right? Kind of an urn, and then the owl. Two birds surrounding one inanimate object. The dove, the owl, on both sides of an inanimate object, reminding me of, just saying, reminding me of two beings with an inanimate object between them, right? So, I think that's the way I want to read the Oracle Boolean as well, which is interesting. The Oracle Boolean last week seemed to line up with the Tarot de Marseille cards above very nicely. This week does the same. I mean, I didn't pull a fourth card out on the other side of the dove, but this week's main three cards seem to match up very nicely with this week's three main cards above. So let's start with, oh, I've got it upside down. I got them both upside, I got them all three upside down. Okay, so here we go. We start off with the amphora, which has the subtitle of La Table, right there, which means table. And the amphora, it's a container for liquid, the liquid of plenty, life itself. The gift of immortality is described by the creator of the original Oracle Boolean. What? It also sustains and gives reason to gather and celebrate, if that makes sense. It sustains and, what did I say? It sustains and gives reason. It sustains the reason and it gives the reason to gather and to celebrate. So, this card gives us the ideas of socializing, of gathering, and entertainment as well. Now, you might be saying, well, that's nothing like the Maison Dieu of breaking apart, breaking open. That's true. That is true. But this card is associated with Venus at the top, right? But its secondary astrological association is the moon, which is the limitations of cycles. Festivities are limited in time. But when Jupiter is right next door, and it will be right next door, where? In the owl card, right? Jupiter is right next door, then Jupiter is expansive, right? It's abundance. Jupiter assists with increasing the duration of celebration. So, yeah, this is not the actual breaking open of the tower. This is the celebration of the tower having broken open, of our release from the tower, right? And yes, we recognize that celebrations have limitations. The celebration is not necessarily going to continue until the end of eternity, and eternity does not have an end, but you know what I mean. And yet, Jupiter being on the side with the owl increases the span of celebration, which is nice, right? Beautiful cards. So let's see what's on the sides of the amphora. Let's start off with this beautiful dove card, which is interesting, right? We've got this dove diving down from the skies. We see an upward pointing triangle of fire in the shape of fire. The dove pointing down is shaped like a downward pointed triangle, which gives us the idea of water. So we've got those two different elements here in one card. The dove, at the side, we have the word la grâce, which means grace. And the dove is a symbol of purity, right? Simplicity and the soul. Also, now note, this is the planet Saturn, which last week was a little problematic, Saturn. But here it's okay. And yet the dove here symbolizes Aphrodite, Venus. Venus. So, the Venus that's here is linked somewhat to this dove diving down, as this is a symbol for this, for Aphrodite, for Venus. So, the creator of the original deck says that this is a card for a prayer that will be answered. Beneficial change is announced. Spiritual experiences influence our lives. Maybe even a vocation could appear. The sub-planet for this card, the main planet is Saturn, the sub-planet is Mercury. So, messenger, right? Messenger of the gods. And Mercury here shakes Saturn's limitations. It kind of disturbs the limitations that Saturn is trying to set down. And so miracles are possible, perhaps, here. Grace, miracles, right? So prayers answered, success, beneficial change. Come out of this celebration of our release from the tower above, perhaps. And the complementary bird here is the owl. Yeah? The dove, perhaps a bird of the day. The owl, a bird of the night. Interesting, beautiful little card. At the side here, we have the French word sagesse, which means sage, wisdom, yeah? Now the bird, this is the bird of the moon. It's a bird for seers and the gift of sight, the gift of second sight, the gift of sight. And the colors in this card, according to the creator, are the colors of purity of the mind. Now we had general purity here with the dove. Here we've got more specific purity of the mind and sight. Here wisdom and reason are with us. Finding the right path is possible here. Kind of like the star card, right? So, okay, just a second. Okay, backing up. I'm trying to leap ahead too far. Making the right choices. It asks for careful thinking and reflection. Like the moon, yeah? Like the moon, which is the sub-planet for this card. Yeah, okay, so yeah. We had the moon as a subplanet for the amphora. Here we have the moon, subplanet. Here we also have the moon as a subplanet. The moon here is for the unconscious, which allows Jupiter to make the best decisions with reason and intuition. Jupiter's reason, expansive reason, and the moon's expansive intuition help produce wisdom and good choices. Now, isn't that interesting? On the owl side, we had the star card. Yeah? The moon, this moon star, different, yes, but wisdom, reason, purity of mind. Here we have purification, we have hopes, we have renewal, faith, success. Nicely matched, right? And then on the other side, we had the dove, symbol of Aphrodite, Venus, right? But grace, prayers being answered. Valets are messengers oftentimes, right? Beneficial changes, spiritual experiences, a little bit in line with the Page of Cups, don't you think? So, the central message is that we are on the verge of releasing ourselves from some kind of confinement. And in the larger spread, that confinement was Weltschmerz. It was world weariness. It was dissatisfaction. It was the unhappiness of the weeks before. So here we break free, we have the advice to celebrate, and we come out with things like wisdom, with purification, with renewal, with truth, with With finding our right path. The star card is also finding the right path. The star card is finding our guiding star. And on the other side, we come out with grace and prayers being answered and beneficial change. But also with the Page of Cups, we have our sensitivity and accepting our intuition. And moving forward with that. And the limitations which had been placed by Saturn being, being shaken. And miracles possible. As we try to understand our own feelings. As we, like the dove, dive down into the waters of our feelings from the heights of the fire. Does that make sense? If it does, let me know in the comments below. If it does not, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Does any of this make sense to you? So this is, I think, a really interesting reading, and I see how this says that core message from the larger spread in a different but interesting way. And I hope you see that too. So friends, I'm starting to freeze. My hands are starting to shrivel. So I'm going to stop this video here. Thank you for being here on this journey. And thank you for your presence. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you. Okay.